Hello, legendary listeners, and welcome to the Legendary Ladies podcast, a podcast all about pop culture, media, and storytelling in all its form. From three, except today, we're four millennials. Ooh. We're joined this week by Kat's partner in crime, Phil, who, if many of you have listened to the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, you know we've had Phil on sporadically to talk Legends of Tomorrow.
He doesn't like staying up late, so that's
No, he
mostly
doesn't.
why.
I admire from
Friend of the
afar.
podcast.
I'll admire you guys the next morning. I don't think I've been on since Legends was airing, so that's
I
pretty
think
crazy.
that's
It's been a
true.
hot sec.
Well,
So
I'm
this
glad
week,
to be back.
oh yeah, I should be like, "Hi, Phil. Say hello."
Hi,
That's
everyone.
Phil's voice.
I hope you enjoy me cutting Amy off as she does her intro. I'm
Nah,
so glad
you
to be
fine.
back.
This week we are going to be talking about Kat's most recent Kickstarter for her comic Beast and Snow. So we're actually, is it The Beast and Snow or just Beast and Snow?
You know, I always call it Snow and Beast, so it could really be anything.
Yeah, it is. Pat likes
You're
to
like,
change
so that's
the
not
title.
actually the title.
No, it actually is called Beast and Snow, but
It's
every
called
single
The
time
Beast and Snow.
yeah. Every single time I talk about it with Phil, I was like, Snow and Beast is doing great. It feels like that's not the title.
Pat likes to shed words whenever she talks about something, so sometimes it's literally just snow.
Most of the time it's just Snow. I remember I was doing a Kickstarter for Like Follow Daughter, and when I type into the URL, instead of typing in Like Follow Daughter, I type in Grand, and I was like, yeah, Grand's doing great. It feels, what the hell's Grand? And I said, oh, it's like, you know, Like Follow Daughter, the grand finale. So when I type it in, I spell Grand. That's how much I shorten things.
And we spent so much time together that I immediately knew what she was talking about, even though we've never called it grand before.
What's so funny, we
Honestly-
spend so much time together. We were coming home from the movies today, and our cars were next to each other when we were driving home, and we had full-on conversations in the middle of the street while we were driving home. And so the one stoplight, I was like, all right, let's have this conversation. Then the next stoplight, we continued the conversation, and we're like, we'll see each other in 20 minutes.
I'm just like, I wonder what people are thinking of this. Are they thinking we're just strangers who are striking up a conversation?
Honestly, that's kind of how rom-coms start, I feel like.
That's
That was
true.
a rom-com moment.
Or Stalker. It's either rom-com or Law and Order. It's what
We did see a horror movie, so it probably was the start of a horror
Kat's
movie.
definitely the killer.
She does seem shifty. I don't know if I would trust her, Phil.
I want to
wouldn't
see
either.
that female slasher movie. I think you'd like to star in that.
I've been trying to make it for a long time.
So we're going to dive into our discussion in just a second, but we'd like to remind you all that we have a Patreon. And if you are a patron, you could be watching this episode live and seeing the video live. You could also be joining in the conversation. So we actually encourage y'all to join, take a look at the Patreon, see if you're interested. We've had a couple new patrons this month whose names I was going to pull up. And
Whose names are?
hold on. I literally, I'm terrible.
Oh, please.
I'm terrible. I think Danny's one of them.
I think Danny's been around
Danny
for a
is
while.
one of them. Danny's
Danny.
been around for a while.
I think Danny might have been around for a while. We have Celine Martinez and
Thank you.
TV. TV.
That's the one I was like, is TV on a
TV
new
is
one?
following us as of 2 weeks ago. I'm glad because we talk a lot about TV.
And softball.
And maybe TV has some hot takes on softball that they want to, email us.
So Phil, you weren't here for this, but we did a whole Ted Lasso episode. So and it was just me
I
and
was
Morgan.
not there for that.
Amy also was not here, and I was saying all these things about softball, and I was like, I don't know if any of this is true. And then the next time we got about 5 emails where I was kind of true, and someone in the comments played softball overseas professionally.
Professional softball
Oh.
and was like, yeah, so what you said about like so gentle to us too. What you said about softball isn't like technically true. And then like as she
But I like
went
your
on, it's
spirit.
like it's not true at all.
I loved how
like
they
that,
weren't
Kat.
they weren't just like little paragraphs. They were full dissertations.
No, we learned so much about softball.
We did learn so much.
I feel so informed now.
The dissertations are the legendary ladies' way.
It is.
Yes.
Kat, I'm glad all that softball, that women's softball you watch at night is coming in handy. And it's kind of soaking into your brain through osmosis.
It does. I always love watching women's sports at night. I like watching Ultimate Tag at night. I don't know. Okay, this is
Ultimate
my
Tag
story.
is great. I will admit.
There's a sport called Ultimate Tag.
Oh my God, Amy!
Hell
If you
yeah.
haven't seen like
Do a
professional
podcast episode.
tag videos,
Patreon
you need to look
exclusive.
at that. Yeah, Patreon exclusive. We'll just watch a bunch of tag videos.
I love this. I also am very excited because Kitchen Nightmares is coming back. And I
We
think
told them about
it's
that.
gonna be this. I think this is gonna be actually a main episode, but also like I think we should just do regular live viewings for our patrons of us watching Kitchen Nightmares.
I wonder
Because
what that
you
looks
know,
like for us.
It'd just be us
I
going,
don't know.
"What's
I have a lot of ideas tonight. So, again, if you guys are a patron, you can join us. The Legendary Ladies is how you find us. Patreon.com/The Legendary Ladies. Again, you know us on Twitter, Legends_podcast. Join us. We love getting feedback. If you know things about softball, let us know later on this
Ultimate
episode.
Tag.
Maybe we'll share the email we got from our resident OBGYN who let us know whether or not Barbie, at the end of the Barbie movie,
I am vindicated.
did in fact come
I'm
fully
vindicated.
equipped. Fiona emailed us and gave us her literal professional opinion. So
Oh, did
Isn't that
she
so fun,
really?
Phil?
she did. Oh no, it's a tweet, I think. But
Yeah.
we did get an answer.
Fiona was on my side. I was very excited.
Yes.
Felt very vindicated.
So let's hop into Beast and Snow, Snow and Beast, or just Snow. So
Whatever
first
you
off,
want to
Kat-
call it.
We call it and.
And Kat and Phil, introduce real fast your brand and just give the listeners a brief overview of how the two of you started working together and how long you've been together. Give us your Twitter bio.
Well, we're not together, but we are. 'Cause that's one of the biggest things that people are
Working
like, "You guys-"
together.
Yeah, but one of the biggest questions is that no, we are just business partners and friends.
Congrats, you guys are a
Like how
lovely
many,
couple.
no matter how many car conversations we have next to each other. Professional.
But yeah, you go, Phil. It has all started with movies, so we could definitely talk about that. But
Yeah, movies are very intrinsic to our friendship. We met through a mutual friend, someone who I went to middle school and high school with, and Kat went to college with, who connected us. And I was familiar with Kat from her comic reviews on YouTube already, so I was like, "Oh, I already know you." And she was like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And I was like, "That's fun." And we just started, traveling in the same circles, and eventually we started being movie buddies. We would go to the movies together. We got the AMC A-list together, so we always were paying the monthly fees, and we're like, we got to see movies, and like we're the only ones who want to see them. And from there we got closer. I learned more about Kat's comics. I started making my own comics, and then we started working together. And we're best friends. We're business partners. We talk 200 times a day. Finish each other's sandwiches. That kind of stuff.
We talk so much that your sibling's
understood that
phone is
reference.
connected to our somehow connected to your phone, that they could find out how many times we
We
talk
use
to
the
each
same
other.
Apple
That's
ID, so we
hilarious.
like share a call log, and Dan will be, and my brother will be like, "Oh, like how many times did you talk to Kat today?" I was like, "Yeah," and then Dan will be like, "Oh, I saw you talk for like 5 hours," and I was like, "Oh, I was just working," and then Kat was on speaker, and we were going through our to-do list, and that
Oh
takes
my
5
God.
hours.
Yeah, we talk 24/7. But yeah, that's kind of how it started and how it's going. And honestly, those calls come up with the best ideas. I want to say those calls probably made us come up with this idea. I
Probably.
don't actually remember when we came up with this idea, but I have a feeling that phone call was like, wait, anytime one of us has an idea, which is almost 24/7. I remember once it was 3:00 in the morning, and Phil sleeps. I don't. And he called me and he's like, "I had this idea." I'm like, "It's 3 a.m, so I had to tell you."
I don't remember what that idea was, but I bet it was a doozy. 'Cause I would not make a phone call at 3 a.m.
No, that was the first and last.
I was gonna ask like how this idea for this comic came together.
Oh man. Honestly, we're gonna be completely honest. We just saw what was doing really well on Kickstarter, which is public domain books or things that had prior fan bases and not safe for work books. And we're like, oh, let's try making a comic like that, but make a comic that we really want to tell. And as you guys know, I do not like fantasy books, so I really wanted
Yes,
to
I
challenge
was
myself.
surprised when you told me initially.
Which
I
is
think
why Morgan and I are so excited.
Yeah, I think we went out for pizza, Kat, like
Yes.
to Danino's
Pam.
with Pam, our listener, and you were like, "Don't tell anyone, but my next project," and you were telling me, and I was like, "That sounds like a fantasy book, Kat." I'm surprised. So yeah, no, I thought that was it sounded like a great idea from like when you told it to us, so we were excited, and it seems like people are excited about it.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely talk about the craziness that has been this campaign. But yeah, we wanted to challenge ourselves, and also, we are a fan of these characters, these public domain stories. Or like, oh, how if we, smush them together, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. We could get into a lot of detail about the process it went through, but like Kat said, the beginning of this project was, like, we want to. Usually story comes first and then like we build everything around that. Here we were like, let's look at what's like most popular and like try to challenge ourselves. And we were like, okay, people really like public domain, they like not safe for work. We haven't touched either of those, let's try it. For the longest time it was a Sherlock Holmes book, it was a Dracula book, and then
it was something else that I really didn't want it to be. I don't remember what it
A
was.
Sherlock Holmes
Wizard of
Dracula
Oz?
book.
It might have been Wizard of Oz. And then, the Sherlock Holmes feels like, and again, we probably will do these in the future, who knows? But in this moment, we're like, it's not the first one. And Phil's like, we're not doing Sherlock Holmes. I'm like, how about Irene Adler? And he's like, I don't know who that is.
I'm not the biggest.
You don't know who Irene Adler is?
Okay, I know who she is. My only experience with Sherlock Holmes is the Robert Downey Jr. movies and the Sherlock Netflix show. So I know who Irene Adler is.
Okay, yeah,
Can you tell, Phil, can you tell the Alex story? Isn't it? You have to tell the Alex story.
Okay, guys, everybody buckle up. Listeners, buckle up.
I'm scared.
Kat's brother. This is when we were brainstorming what would eventually become The Beast in Snow. And we were talking about Sherlock Holmes, and I was really pissed off because it looked like we were going to do a Sherlock Holmes book, and that was not what I wanted to do right away because I didn't want to do all the research. I didn't know enough about it. And I was like, this is going to be so much work. And Kat was talking to her brother, and she was like, yeah, we might do this like Sherlock Holmes book where it's like, and it might be like a gay like BL book with like Sherlock and Dracula. And Kat's brother is like, who's Watson? And Kat was like, like Sherlock and Watson, like Holmes and Watson, sidekick. And he's like, I have no idea who that is. We're like, Kat was like, you know who Sherlock Holmes is, right? And he goes, yeah, he's the detective. He goes, he works with a partner with John Watson. And Alex is like, I've never heard of that before. And Kat like called in her parents into the room. She was like, guys, you guys know who Holmes and Watson are? And Kat's parents are always on Alex's side, but even they were like, Alex, you don't know who Watson is? Like, have you been under a rock for the past 28 years?
Like, has he not heard that, like, it's elementary, my dear Watson? Like, who did he think Watson was in that scenario?
Because Kat told this to me, and my jaw was on the floor. I like couldn't compute. When she first told me this, which was like 5 months ago, I was telling everybody I met, I was like, guys, you're not going to believe Alex doesn't know who Watson is. And people will be like, who's Alex?
He's like, let me tell you. And I remember I went to a Seasons 52, and we were getting good conversation with our waiter, so I felt comfortable enough to be like, do you know who Watson is? And she's got scared because she's like, do I? And she did know. And
to be fair, Kat didn't set it up at all
knows.
for her. Kat was just like, you know who Watson is? And she's like, is this a code?
In what scenario? What Watson are we talking about? Yeah, I feel like you're like, Sherlock, who's Sherlock's little buddy? Everyone would be like, yeah, Watson.
Not Alex. I think Alex knows who he is now because we all made
because of the shame, I think.
But he still admits that no one knows.
Yeah,
I brought it up recently, and he's like, Kat, no one knows that. I was like, Alex.
Everyone knows that.
You should bring Alex onto the podcast to defend his position.
Defend his honor.
We'll have him make us like a presentation about like who is Watson.
I would love him to do that. He wouldn't.
He'd be like, I'm good.
But anyway, so we were originally going to do Sherlock and Watson. We talked about doing Greek mythology, and then eventually we both.
That's when you found out I knew nothing about Greek mythology, so I went to Catholic school.
Catholic school did not help you.
So Kat was like, no, I don't want to do the research on Greek mythology. Phil
was
like, no, I don't want to do the research on Sherlock Holmes. And thus you guys were like, we know Snow White.
We do know Snow White, and we know Beauty and the Beast. We got into the headspace of a crossover of some sort because we were originally just like, let's find a public domain and put our own spin on it. And then we were like,
we knew. Do we know? Yeah, we knew it was going to be not safe for work. I think at that point
that was always part of it. That it was going to be a not safe for work book. And I don't mean to imply we're not willing to do research. We are wholly willing to do research. But we were like, oh, we got to knock this out quickly. Like, we're trying to fit this into a time slot on Kickstarter, like, pretty soon. So, like, we wanted something that would be a little bit less starting from ground zero. And then
we had artists in mind. Like, we had a lot of things, lined up.
A lot, like, we had a lot lined up, except the story. And then I don't know exactly how we landed on Fairy Tale, but once we hit Fairy Tale, the story really came together in, like, a day. Like, the gist of what the story would be. The writing took a little bit. Like, I know there was a little conflict there. But
there was one session where we were so upset with ourselves. There was we had 2 sessions where we got the ball rolling. We knew what the story was. And it was like the 3rd session and we got nothing done for like 2 hours. And it was us talking. And we were so upset with ourselves.
We were fighting each other. We were like, I would make a suggestion. I'd be like, no, that doesn't make sense. And I would make a suggestion. She'd be like, no, that's not the story I want to tell. It's too fantasy. I'd be like that. And we left so defeated, but we really needed that because the next time everything came together.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
it
much
was the last session we needed, actually, and then we wrote, I think, separately. Did we write separately for this book?
We wrote.
No, actually, we didn't.
Together, and then we
wrote it all together.
I think you're right. Actually, that doesn't usually happen for us. We usually split up after we nail down the tone. But
especially something with inner monologues. Like, I love being somewhere else writing inner monologue. We're good at writing dialogue together. If we need to do something. But we definitely notice, like, if we're writing inner monologue, we should go somewhere else, or if it's something that's intense. Yeah, we wrote another story that should not be announced because it's not out yet. But that actually has been in the works more than this story, and that took us so long. And I remember the first 6 pages was all inner monologue, and we had to write that separately 5 times. And that book took us a really long time to write. This one. Something came together once we found out Snow's voice, which is also really different than we normally write. It just really all came together.
Yeah.
Now, Snow is because there's vampires in this, spoiler alert. But is Snow the vampire, or is that okay? Yes.
Right. So we threw everything into a melting pot. We were like, what do we want to do? We want to do Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, vampires, werewolves, sexy, and then all of it came together somehow.
I love that. Okay, so give us the general summary of the story and the plot. What is the tagline?
Which is so interesting because we've been on a few podcasts for this, but usually when we do our log line, we kind of figure it out at a Comic-Con, and obviously we don't got a Comic-Con right now. We workshop it.
We'll give you the temporary one. Snow White was a good girl, a people pleaser, until she was murdered by her evil stepmother. True love's kiss couldn't wake her up, but eventually she came back to life as a vampire, and dedicated the rest of her existence to doing what she wanted and not taking shit from anybody ever again, until she set on a quest to rescue the beautiful Belle from the clutches of a ferocious beast in a steamy 18+ NSFW adventure. And I'm sure we'll shed words like we always do whenever we do our convention. We definitely
have to.
Kat, if Kat has her way, the pitch will become Snow fucks Beast.
Yes,
that's it. I think
you're allowed. You're allowed. You're allowed.
Welcome to this is we are going to do 18+. So here's what I am already finding interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple different players in this story, and I'm curious who I have seen some of the panels. Who brings Snow back to life?
That will be revealed in this issue.
Yeah. I'm very excited. Okay, so what
Can I also read a comment? Abby sent this, and then Abby said, sorry, my cat was on my keyboard.
I thought it was something that I just didn't understand. I wasn't cool enough or online enough.
I thought it was an emoji react. I was
Me too, but I was like, what's the emoji?
Is this a wow, this is really sexy, I love this tagline. I'm like, is that it kind of looks like if you look at it upside down, sideways, it does kind of look like a person lying in a coffin. So maybe that's your new
sure. Yeah.
Right? You can see that,
the universal vampire emoji we all know and love.
I'm gonna use
There's
that
a fang there.
Oh
my gosh, this is the greatest. I'm gonna show it again. Just to get there. It is. That
fantastic.
For your audio listeners, there's a P and there's a lot of what do you call those?
bracket,
Semicolons?
and then
Yeah.
Open brackets and then some semicolons.
Not some semicolons. There are about
Many,
15
many,
semicolons there. So, what is this is clearly a connected world. Is it a consistent timeline? Has Snow been dead for 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, 100 years? Is this the kind of thing where when like this still exists in a general time period, or is Snow one of those like I've lived for 500 years vampires?
No,
She's the
young
younger
baby
vampire.
yeah, baby vampire
She,
for sure.
Baby vamp.
baby vamp. She didn't spend much time dead. You know, she's revived as a vampire while still in the glass casket. So you know, she wakes up, but she's not. She also isn't like day one vampire. She's been in a few years, but she's not like 100-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So is the
Which
world
is also told in this issue.
Ah. So is the world of the universe of the comic, is it well known that vampires there exist, or do people like not know and she has to kind of be incognito?
Incognito, but I think if someone found out, would be like vampire. It's like okay.
Yeah, people are aware of monsters. There is a beast
Okay.
running around terrorizing a village. So
this is a world in which supernatural creatures do exist on a regular basis.
yeah, it may not
regular
be
enough. Like
your
every
local
blue
baker
moon.
may not be like privy to all the vampires that are around, but they also won't be too surprised since they have seen the stray monster from time to time.
They're getting attacked. They
They're-
really are.
they are-
They're all
That's tough.
dying.
That sounds
Yeah.
tough.
It's a sad town.
You're like, this is really sad for them. So let's talk about something that I know is very near and dear to Kat's heart and a lot of our listeners' heart. This is a comic that you chose not only to be NSFW, so not suitable for work, 18 plus, but this is a comic that is very, very heavy queer into the queer community. So there's very, very heavy queer representation right off the bat. That is immediately evident by any marketing you guys have done for it, all the taglines, all the covers,
For anything we do.
gorgeous.
Thanks.
But
Very
this is
spicy.
something that's very important to you, Kat. And as someone who I read a lot of steamy stuff, and I know what it's like to have to read something written by someone who clearly doesn't know what's actually going on. Like, how important was it to you to make sure that you represented the spicy world correctly, that you represented these characters in this queer relationship correctly?
Important for sure. For the first issue, we don't. I think we get spoiled. We don't see the romance as much. It's more of a build up to the main romance. There is still sex. But also something we really want to do with the queer representation is do something really, really different from Slice of Life, which is really about their identities a lot. It's very much like I'm gay and this is what it means. And this book, but you know, it doesn't matter as much. You could piggyback off that, Phil, if you wanted to.
For sure. I think that when we first went into doing this book, we knew we wanted to tell a not safe for work story. We wanted to tell an adult story, but we also want to tell a character story like we would with any series that we approach. So it always is character first. It always is story first. And, you know, fortunately, you know, the character in the story very much lends itself to more adult themes. As Kat mentioned, you know, the focus of the of the first issue is primarily building up who is Snow, you know, what is she, what has been her journey so far, and what sets her on this path and leads to her meeting Belle and, you know, the blossoming of this romance. And, you know, I think we've both been fans of not safe for work comics. You know, we've have a lot of friends who have had a lot of success publishing not safe for work comics on Kickstarter, and we really like the way that they approach it. But we've also seen not safe for work comics on Kickstarter and you know, just in comics in general that weren't as much our speed, weren't as much
More cheesecake.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No disrespect to those, but that's not really the story that we're most interested in. And we have this whole queer audience that, like Kat mentioned, is very invested in the character journeys and the discovering of the identities in Slice of Life. And that's very much our webtoon Slice of Life. And that's very much something we wanted to continue. We wanted to tell character-driven stories, but also rebel against, where it's not so much like, oh, I have to accept that I'm a lesbian, so much as like, yeah, they're incidentally queer, and the romance, the major force of the story, but it's not Snow sitting here saying, I'm a vampire and a lesbian.
Yeah, their barrier
Oh
is
my God.
what? Their barrier will never be their queerness, and at least in this world. Like, it's never gonna be like they're too gay, you know. There's a
Although
princess.
I do think like a tagline as I'm a vampire and a lesbian question mark.
I'm
is
picturing
very
like
funny.
I'm picturing like an old timey comic cover where you have like the text on it and it's just, like
Yes.
Snow
We could, you
looking
never
into
know.
a mirror, no reflection,
I
surprise face, and then I'm a vampire and a lesbian.
The mirror just says gay, and she's like, "Oh my God."
Mirror,
That's
mirror. Oh my god.
really funny.
Write that
And
down. Write that down.
Listen,
I think
we're
that's
just pitching ideas for you guys.
That's like the you guys need like a blooper reel at the last page of everything is like the panel that didn't make it, and that's one of them.
That'd
Is
be
where
fun.
she finds the mirror and she's looking at it and it just says gay.
I love it.
Danny says, I mean, I love a good gay journey, but I also like stories where that isn't the focus. Both have their place. And also, like, we've told GL stories honestly a lot. Like, you've told in Haunting. I'm telling a bisexual story, and like Fall Like Daughter, we do slice of life every week. We just wanted to do something a little bit different that just didn't really have to do with everything has to do with the queer identity, but not the identity part of it. It's just like we wanted to do something a little different with it.
Yeah, it is a story about identity and queerness, but it's not about them saying like, discovering their queer identity. Ironically, I think that's
discovering themselves.
Discovering who
So
they
how do you differentiate this story then from? I mean, it is something that people have done a lot of Snow White. They've done a lot of vampires. They've done a lot of Beast and like they've done a little bit Beauty and the Beast. How do you make Beast and Snow stand out?
They have sex. Honestly, the difference for this one, I would say Snow's voice. Snow White is really snarky in this, which is interesting because when we first was writing this issue, we didn't know it was going to go that direction. I don't normally write snarky characters that often, and Phil's like, oh man, I'm kind of surprised we're going this direction. I feel like you actually are like, I don't know yet. Should we do this direction? And we started writing it more, and we're like, I love this direction. This is what makes this character, and that's what I really liked about issue 1 was her voice a lot. So I think she has a very distinct voice, and I think a lot of times with Snow White, it's like, oh, where are the dwarves? Where's, all these other stuff? And I think this is really just about her, and something I very much enjoy about her character arc, or at least in this first issue, is the people pleaser aspect. Because I think we all have been there. We've all been like, oh, I want to make my dad happy, or I want to make this person happy. And when she became a vampire, she's like, I'm going to leave that all behind. I don't need to be a people pleaser anymore. I'm done with that. And you realize you can never change as a person. You always have like your core ticks, and she's always going to be a people pleaser, and I think that journey was super interesting, and honestly actually ties into the not safe for work aspect of this story.
It does, yeah. Piggybacking on that, I think that obviously Snow's voice is one of our favorite things about this comic, and then other than that, I think what sets it apart is the combination. I think that this is very much an exploration of like becoming a monster and maybe gaining agency through that. I think I think that, as we've said, Snow and Belle as well, but Belle a little bit more. We'll say a little bit less about, because that's a little bit more spoilery.
More issue 2 also.
Well, more so in issue 2, but both of them, very much. We keep using the word people pleaser because I'm bad at coming up with synonyms at night. But both of them are very much people pleasers. Both of them very much did not have control over their lives and themselves, and we're sort of freed by, in Snow's case, dying and becoming a monster. But learns that that's only the first step, and you don't change just because you die and become something else. You still have this core personality, and you have to make conscious decisions to change or not change, and find out where you lie between who you were and who you've become. And I think that's what's most interesting to me about this story. Aside for just cool supernatural romance.
So you said something there that intrigues me. The idea that Snow becomes a monster, and that makes me start to immediately think, like, what are the vampire rules? Does she need to feed on a regular basis? Does she need human blood? Can she survive on animal blood? Are there consequences for not feeding? What are the vampire rules in this story?
Girl gotta eat.
She does, and she does feed in this issue. We don't discuss the rules as much in this issue, but that's definitely not ruling out. And I think you'll see the rules a little bit more in this, which we did purposely. Like,
Yeah, how was that? Because like you're dealing with like werewolves and vampires and things that have like these really big established mythologies, but like every different take on them does different stuff with the mythology. So how did you feel when you were like, okay, we're gonna do a vampire story, and then like deciding what parts of the vampire mythology you guys wanted to use and which ones you're like, nah.
I think that an approach Kat and I like to take is letting the story kind of dictate what the rule sets are. You know, like Kat said, there are certain rules and abilities that come with, you know, vampire and werewolf are revealed very naturally over the course of the first issue. And, you know, we have our Bible, but anything that hasn't been firmly established in writing yet, we're willing to change if it suits the story. Like one thing Kat and I were recently debating, actually, is that coincidentally, the whole story takes place at night. So it's like, oh, can vampires go out during the daylight in this story? And it hasn't.
He does.
There's a scene in Twilight, but it's like a dreamy scene. So I think that's a debate one. But you know, very much we have certain rules and certain abilities. Like she has enhanced strength. She quote unquote vamps out. You know, when she loses her temper and you know her fangs come in and her features change slightly and you know, her strength enhances. But other than that, you know, I think we're trying to let the story kind of dictate when we reveal the certain rules of that, and the werewolf especially. That's something that very much comes more into play. The very specific rules of that in the second issue.
Just know if we ever do a mermaid story, H2O just have water rules are just gonna dictate.
I gotta say, I'm shocked you haven't managed to yet work in a mermaid anywhere. But I have faith.
Never know.
There have been discussions.
There's definitely been discussions, which actually after this phone call, I feel like I'm gonna tell Phil, I have an idea.
Listen,
the mermaid story.
The mermaid story is finally happening. I have to say, I saw how well it did on Kickstarter, and I was like skimming over the Kickstarter, but I didn't actually realize that this is like the first issue of like something that's going to be ongoing. How do you guys have how many issues planned for the whole story, or are you just kind of like figuring it out as you go along?
I think we can even drop an exclusive here if you're okay with it, Phil.
I'm okay with it.
This is going to be a bigger universe. This is not going to be the only series in this world. And we're going to actually we are working on the next book now that is connected to this world with two different fairy tale characters. Mashups.
Ooh. I love this.
That's exciting.
The Beast in Snow itself is a 4-issue miniseries. So that story with these characters is meant to go on for 4 issues. But that doesn't mean it's the last we'll see of the characters, you know, and that they might not have interplay in other stories, obviously.
Ooh.
Our Marvel Cinematic Universe is
we're building. But we want to maintain the integrity of each individual series. We want this series to be the 4-issue mini that tells the origin story of these two and their relationship. And the same for the next one that we're developing that probably you'll see not too far from now. We're aiming for early 2024.
April, yeah, we're hoping we're hoping like April, March, like that area. So we're writing literally right now where we have like the beat sheet going and we're working on it to get a Kickstarter going. Because like obviously this did very well, but B, like that was always kind of like what we wanted to do. If this did well, like where can it go? And fairy tales are kind of built on other fairy tales, and a lot. I mean, look at some other franchises that do it, but
and it's very romance novelty as well, like where you'll like have the first couple and then there's gonna like another book and it's the other couple but they know the first couple or something, or it's their sister or something like that. So it feels very like in the not, you know, spicy, not safe for work, like romancy area to do, you know, a connected universe. That's fun.
And it's really different, this one, which is fun because that, again, with these, we wanted to challenge ourselves. And it's so interesting how different it's going to be. And we play with some tropes in that too. So
guys, I'm getting Kat to write some of the heaviest fantasy that she's ever written.
I can't believe you're doing it. I can't believe you got her to do it.
Even further.
I draw a line.
We won't say what it is, but I'll say that when we first said we were doing this, Kat was like, this is too fantasy for me. And then like we came up with the idea and she's like, damn it, we got to do it. But I'm not happy about it.
But you were saying even more than Beast and Snow. I agree. This is
It's even more
but-
of fantasy driven than Beast and Snow, I would say.
But I think there is a very distinct difference between fairy tale and fantasy. I think
That's true.
that fairy tale has a grounded set of kind of pre-existing rules, whereas fantasy, like the concept of high fantasy, the things I know you're not particularly
not high
fond of,
fantasy. That's
that a lot of that is not necessarily like world building based, but like it's so involved that sometimes you lose the character development.
I was gonna be like, Kat, tell us about your magic system.
The magic system. There's magic.
Morgan, they literally just said, we don't know, we might change the rules based on the needs of the story. And this is the difference, is that the fairy tale world, you've got a lot of leeway because it could literally be anything, but anyone who goes into this knowing the idea of the fairy tale world, they're like, there's going to be possibly elves. There might be a werewolf. There's probably going to be a baker of some sort. Like, that world is clearly identified where you're like, let's do fantasy. Straight up, you think like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, like different worlds that all have dragons, and yet there's time travel at some point. Like, it's just, everything is weird. So I think you guys are, I think that this lends itself better to your storytelling style, Kat, because you've
100%.
got that level of groundwork already laid. Not to say that you guys don't get a chance to world build, but character-wise, it seems to me like this is going to be easier for you to create a character story when you don't have to worry about the magic systems.
Well, yeah, no magic system, that is for sure. I won't say no, but I don't, not at this time.
Yeah, we always joke and not joke about like Kat doesn't love fantasy, but you know, at the end of the day, like you said, Amy, very much character work is our sweet spot. It's what we value the most. So, you know, that's always the first thing we look at when we approach any given writing property. I like fantasy a lot more than Kat, but I always am like, let's define these characters and then build the magic system around them.
One of their favorite shows is Owl House, and it was a little bit too fantasy driven for me. And I was watching it on my phone, and there's this character that talks, and I didn't know that.
My partner Julius really wanted to show Kat the Owl House, and I was like,
that's not a good idea.
I know the second it comes on screen, she's gonna zone out. He was like, no, we got to give her 2 episodes. They're only 20 minutes each, and after the first full episode, the second episode's going on, and a character who's like a little like demon dog thing talks, and he'd been talking the whole first episode. And Kat goes, he could talk? And we're like, Kat, he had like at least 20-30 lines in the last episode.
I said he never opened his mouth. I never saw him open his mouth.
He doesn't open his mouth when he speaks, but it very much like the camera's on him. He has his own voice. Anyway, we watched the Owl House with my siblings like a couple of months later, and after the first episode, Julius was like, you know, you guys know that King, the little thing, can talk, right? And they're like, yeah. And we go, Kat didn't know that after the first episode, and now it's like a joke. We'll be watching, and then they'll be like, wait, he could talk? Like in the middle of
We could be packing packages, and I'll be just in my zone, and Marianne be like, he could talk?
I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad we did. I think you roasted yourself, which I like.
Oh, I definitely roasted myself. I think I was talking about high fantasy. I was like, even that is too high fantasy.
That's pretty low fantasy.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure the Owl House isn't like high fantasy.
It has its rules. They got magic.
I think where Kat draws the line is it takes place in a non-realistic world, as in like they go to another world, and Kat's like, can't do it.
Kat's like, I'm sorry, I'm out.
I'm surprised you like Darby, Kat. They're in a fantasy world.
But it's all about like character. It's all about this weird existential journey about life.
So before we get into the Kickstarter stuff, the one question I have about this fairy tale world is that I think like you look at the history of fairy tales, and there's always, quote, a moral. There's always a lesson that gets learned. You look at Grimm's fairy tales, and sometimes the lessons is straight up, don't be a bitch, or like don't walk into a stranger's house and eat candy.
It sounds like everything, all horror movies that they should all learn. We just saw a movie, Talk to Me, and I was just thinking about the character we saw. It was a good movie, but this girl, she kept annoying me. She didn't learn any lessons.
It had an
She just
unlikable protagonist.
Okay.
So you reminded me of that because I was like, oh, that reminded me of her, and I hated her.
Learn one thing, please.
Yeah, please learn a lesson. But go on, Amy.
So what are your thematic centers for this story? What are the themes that you hope people walk away from after they read this miniseries?
I think not being afraid of being yourself, but if those qualities of yourself overextends, learn how to curb them. Like you can be a people pleaser, but don't overextend being a people pleaser, but also don't change yourself either. So it's just like trying to find yourself and trying to find the balance in the thing that makes you you.
Balance is the word I was going to use as well. Like I think people and our leads especially have a background of giving too much of themselves away and then overcorrect and get to a position where they are
Or trapped in a castle or a vampire.
or they become they go from giving too much to they're like antagonistic forces to the world around them, and it's very much about striking that balance and also like learning who you are by helping somebody else learn who they are as well. So the romance obviously plays a big role in that. I think balance is the key word I would use.
I love universal themes like that, and so I'm really
We love a
excited
good theme.
I do love a good theme because I think ultimately it's what connects readers to the page. So speaking of connecting readers to the page,
Yes.
This Kickstarter kicking some serious ass. So first off, if you have not listened to this podcast before, hi, welcome. Kat is a regular Kickstarter spectacular. So she's really good at this shit. So we've done episodes about how do you make a good Kickstarter, make a good thumbnail, and how you can do really good marketing and stuff like that. She has done panels at Comic-Con. So if you are interested in that kind of stuff, I'm going to say go back and listen to those episodes.
Yeah, we're probably not going to teach you how to do a Kickstarter.
Coincidentally,
But
Kat also does some Kickstart consulting. So if that's something that you want to maybe do in the future and you want some advice on it, Kat can help you kickstart your Kickstarter.
Yes,
exactly. I like that
paper,
plug.
Kat.
Yeah, I like
we
it.
got your tag. That's your tagline.
Making
and
that
it's
paper.
literally just the logo's just a foot kicking the Kickstarter, like kickstart your Kickstart. Anyway, so this one's different. This one has exploded. So share why you think this one is doing so well and how are things going? What's exciting about this? What's the tea?
There's so much tea. I want to start the story by saying we went to a block party with Phil's family, and the amount of people who just came up to me. It's some of them I only met for the first time, and they're like, "Your Kickstarter is doing so well."
For context, like my whole family is tangentially aware of our comics and like the Kickstarters we do, and like they all I've had a conversation with them here or there, and this one is spreading like wildfire where they're seeing like how much did they make in 5 days? Like how is that doing? How many backers do they have? So the second we got there, people were running up to us and they're like, "Are you serious? How did you do this?" And they're like patting Kat in the back. She's like, "Thank you, whoever you are."
Most of Phil's family members I do know, but might have been like one or two that I've known like through name.
Some, like,
and
second
not
cousins.
Yeah, like a second cousin or something. But like all pretty much, obviously his immediate family and his first cousins. We literally just went to a movie with one of his cousins today. Yeah, no, it is just interesting, and also it was interesting to like see. I think when we sell, we're doing a not safe for work book and it's so different from what we've been doing before, it's interesting to see like everyone's reaction to it too. I mean, like, what type of stories are you telling? And it's been really cool to see how excited everyone's been getting for the different types of stories we're telling. Yeah, so the reaction, I'll pass it on to you, Phil. I guess we could say how we got here, but I already said my reaction's been kind of crazy. It's so many people have been messaging us. It's just like, it's been like, and I don't even know what to say. I say thank you. And I'm like, it's literally been a roller coaster ride because I don't know how to explain it.
It very much feels like a massive step up, but B, also a culmination. Kat and I, prior to this, we've done probably at least 30 Kickstarters at this point. And we've worked very hard to build a Kickstarter audience, but also a queer audience
and a fan base in general.
A fan base
Comic Cons,
who knows the
webtoon.
kind of stories we like to tell, and knows and
Mm.
very much knows the character work that we like to do. And I think that all of it really came together here, where the inception of the story was very much looking at what does well on Kickstarter and leaning into that. So that by itself very much lended itself to blowing up on Kickstarter beyond our wildest dreams. But also it's the culmination of, for Kat, 6 years, I think, of kickstarting and building an audience and priming an audience to jump on board for this big project. And it became this big snowball effect of the new people who were really interested in this very Kickstarter friendly, maybe the easiest pitch of definitely the easiest pitch of any of our books, but also really mobilizing our fan base to come out on day one. Like you saw the moment we announced this to our newsletter. Usually when we have a pre-launch page for a Kickstarter, a follow page before it launches, the follows trickle in. Usually
200 something.
We land in the 200 range. Snow, just sharing it to our newsletter, to our existing audience, people prioritized it right away. It jumped up to 500, 600 followers in just a couple of days.
And then
to the point where we accelerated our launch. We launched a week earlier than we planned to because it grew so quickly.
Because we didn't want people to follow it anymore. We just wanted them to back it at that
we
point.
were just
I remembered when we were eating dinner at Comic-Con, Kat's we're kind of I think we have to go, this is wild. We're just so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember.
Go on.
Sorry, I remember talking to you while you were in San Diego, and we were talking about the follow page, and we made the decision while you were there to move it up a week because we were just we don't need to wait. It's gotten to the point that usually takes us 2 weeks times 3, multiple times what we'd ever gotten before. So, very much going back to what I was saying before, very much I think it was shocking because we had goals in our mind and we blew past them, but also
we had buy visibility goals. That's what we wanted to do. So buy visibility, just for context, that's our biggest campaign yet. Before this, it was 1,300 backers and about $30,000. So we're it would be really nice if this is our first issue and we could get to that. We got to that in 2 days.
The backer count, we're almost there, but the dollar amount we blew through in a couple of days. So it's been, like Kat said, it's been a roller coaster. We're very good at being negative, Kat and me.
Yeah, hyping ourselves down.
We are people who thrive and improve ourselves by being self-deprecating, and that's also our sense of humor. So usually after a Kickstarter, we'll be okay, what can we do to make this even bigger? But this one, it's the first time in a long time where the hype has just been a week later. We're just wow, pat ourselves on the back.
And also what's so interesting about this campaign too is that usually Kickstarters, they slow down, right? In the mid-campaign, it's kind of known as the dead zone. You have your good first, probably usually 3 days. Once you get to Wednesday, it starts to slow down a little bit. We're in week 2, 2 days in, and we got 50 backers today.
Whoa.
That is crazy. Yesterday we had over 100 backers, and this is your dead zone. This is what insane. Some people make on their first day, which is your biggest day, is you can make 100 backers, and that's great. We're making that in our mid campaign, and it's just been, we decided we have to do another book. So it's been crazy, but I forgot the other part of that question. I think it was how we did it. I think we just know what was again, it was the existing fan base. We built the audience, but also to tricks of the trade, also it was just getting other people on this project that also had an audience, our cover artists. Go for it, Phil.
You talked about Amy before. You mentioned how important a thumbnail is, and that was very much from the moment we came up with this story. Before we got a single page, we were we need to get character designs right away because we need to start looking for cover artists, because covers are incredibly important to the success of any book,
but especially not safe for workbooks.
Especially not safe for workbooks, and the thumbnail for this book is very, very, very much responsible for a large portion.
It got me right away, immediately down. I was well, I'm supporting that. Not that I don't we always support, but still, I was nope, that's happening.
But this is I'm so excited, and
it makes it a no-brainer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the artist we got is and I'm not lying about this, he's the biggest artist in this genre of comics. So when we knocked on his door, I didn't know if he was going to say yes or not. It was just more of oh, let's see if he we'll do it. And he's like, yeah. And because we gave it him early, he's like, I'm busy for these like months or whatever, but like come back with me.
We actually reached out to him first for a Slice of Life cover, ironically, because he doesn't fit the slice. I shouldn't say he doesn't fit, but it's a bit playing against his type to go in the Slice of Life direction. But we were trying to experiment with covers, and he said he wasn't free. And then we were like, let's keep him in mind, because like, obviously we've spoken to him. Like, let's come back to him when we have another project. And thankfully, this was one that he really enjoyed the tagline for and jumped on immediately. So.
Yeah, and
I've read something by, I think, Sunstone.
That's
which
his
is like
biggest book.
One of his big ones. Yeah. So when I saw the art, I was like, oh my God, good job, guys.
Yeah, no, it was a big reach, and we got it. And then we got so many messages like, how did you get him? How did you get him? And honestly, lesson learned for everybody. Just ask. There was no special thing. It really like I didn't have any previous relationship with him. A lot of times I will get covers because like, oh, I reviewed a book like 10 years ago and they remembered me. But I never reviewed any of his books. I literally just asked and he said yes. And yeah, I think the lesson learned too is just know your market. Like, I know that's weird to say, but we did this book looking at the market and seeing what did well and how we got our voice with it.
And our audience as well. One thing we do after every Kickstarter is say like, oh, what do you want to see in the future? And the chorus of people saying they wanted some more adult content was getting louder and louder, which is pretty funny because we were doing Slice of Life, which is very much an all ages book, and we're getting all.
They won't even hold hands half the time.
It just missed for the first time pretty recently, and we just get all these people like, oh, like you want to do anything a little sexier, and we're like, all right, we can, and
I love that.
They definitely came out for it.
Okay, so let's start wrapping up by making it very, very clear where all of the listeners can find this.
Well, I also want to shout out Abby and also Danny, who says, I backed this one so fast after you mentioned it was coming on a previous podcast. And Danny says, I forgot I hadn't already backed it. So luckily I did that last week. Thank you for both of you guys backing and supporting.
Thank you.
But the way to find it, you go to both our Twitters. It's pinned at Comic Uno for me, and Phil, your Twitter
at Phil Falco writes.
And then I knew your Twitter. I just thought you would want to say it.
Phil, can you do me a favor? I spelled it wrong the first time. Your last name. Can you spell it out for us?
Yes, that's Falco. So at PHILFALCO. Writes WRITES. I almost misspelled rights. So
if someone does, someone's gonna write FILPHALCORIGHTS.
When I was in middle school, I used that as like my screen name. I would like do the F for the Phil and the PH for the Falco. I thought I was so cool. So
you are very cool. Someone has that email now. Yeah, you can also search Beast and Snow on Kickstarter.
Or
it's
Google.
Pretty easy to find out. Or Google, yeah.
Or Snow and Beast, or just
Or just and I promise you won't find anything. I also we did a better job at naming this title because a lot of times again,
we used to be like Google Slice of Life, and then it's like, oh, I'm seeing a genre.
So this one we named a little bit easier for the SEO. So
awesome.
Smart.
Beast and Snow, the Beast and Snow,
and
you can check it out. And
how long is the Kickstarter running?
It's until August 31st.
End of the month.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Literal end of the month.
And I'm just going to have a fun question for each Kat and Phil. If right now you got to write in any other universe,
oh man,
like all the things you guys are debating, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. Well, I don't want to do that. If you got your choice right now, if you could write anything else, what would it be?
Well, let's answer maybe for each other. Maybe Phil, what do you think?
Ooh.
I would say.
That's a good idea.
I
like
mine's easy. Mine's Spider-Man. That's easy. For you, Phil, it's a little harder.
Yeah, I actually don't know what my answer would be.
I know.
Okay.
We're gonna say it
I know.
Okay,
Chucky.
One.
Yeah.
I love
that was precious.
He loves Chucky, and he has Phil. You have to get your doll. Please get your doll.
We're taking
you have a Chucky doll.
It is. Phil, he scared me the other day.
Have you watched the TV show?
I love.
He loves.
Is it
the
good?
TV show.
I need spooky season suggestions.
I love the TV show. Is it good?
I love Chucky, but I also acknowledge that Chucky is a little difficult to get into. And what I love about it is how weird it is. I could have a long conversation with you about this, Morgan. But
I would love it.
First, here's Chucky.
Oh my God, that's
And then-
That's not even
No.
the start.
I got to introduce you to my son.
Oh no, I hate
This
it.
is-
You have to go all the way back and show how tall it is.
I'm gonna
Why
put
is it
him,
so big?
I'm gonna put him on the floor so you can see him. Hold on.
He's like 3
so
feet, I want to
he's so
say.
no,
Look
he's
at him.
child size.
And he has children clothes. He has a Disney outfit. I'm not
When
joking.
I
He has Little
bought this
Mermaid
doll,
clothes.
when I bought this doll and spent an obscene amount of money on him, my mom bought him toddler clothes.
Yes.
I have like Little Mermaid dress.
Did he come naked?
Amazing.
No, he has
I
those
know.
clothes he has on now.
No, those are the clothes. The ones he's wearing
Oh
now
my
is what he wears
God.
in the movie.
Those of you who are
scary.
just listening to this podcast, go to our YouTube channel, The Legendary Ladies, to
That's
see
true.
the creepiest
Yeah,
thing.
you're gonna want to see what the
ever.
doll looks
For
like.
any
You're gonna-
Chucky fans in the audience, who
really
aren't on
actually
video,
don't need
we're looking
to.
at Glenn
It's a little
Glenda.
creepy.
God.
Now
you understand why it was so easy for me to say, yeah, I think you would
Chucky.
write Chucky.
I would like that. I would have a fun. I would honestly love writing any like slasher property because I love slashers. It's
He
like
tells me he'll write anything ever. He said anything anyone wants to hire me on, I'll learn about it.
That's
I love
also
that.
true. We were talking because we're always like, oh, like one of the biggest ways to get respect in comics is just to write known
Work for
IPs.
hire.
I was like, I'll write
Yeah.
anything. Kat's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
write Star Trek. I don't want to write. I don't know what else we list
How
out. I'm
dare.
like,
Star Trek was
We'll
mostly
ghost write
having
it.
fun.
I'll ghost write it for you, Kat.
That's
I
true.
can
We have-
accept that.
I've seen enough Star Trek, and anything I haven't seen, I always tell Kat, if we get the opportunity to write anything, I'll make myself an expert.
Power Rangers.
I love
I
it.
told you I would become an expert in Power Rangers if we wrote Power Rangers.
Aw.
I would love that. I love
know
Power Rangers. And it's so much he would have to study. We'd have to watch 25 seasons of
I'm
Power
up to the
Rangers.
task. I know we started this video saying that we didn't want to do research for Snow, but I'm willing to do research. I like doing research.
Abby says, "So glad I got to see that at 11 p.m. at night, right before going to bed."
And you're
for
holding it by
audio
the camera.
listeners, Chucky is now with us. Chucky is
look at
on
their
the
hand.
stream.
Waving. Okay, nope, we're ending this
That's
podcast.
their child. That's their
Chucky's
child.
son.
How
this
dare
is
you talk
Glenn.
about his son that way?
Chucky can reproduce?
Oh, there's a whole movie called Seed of Chucky. It's all about him and his girl Tiffany having their non-binary child, Glenn Glenda.
And that's Glenn
I
Glenda,
don't-
who's played by a human and a doll.
Yeah.
I love them. I cherish
I
them.
haven't
I
seen
don't want
one of
them on
them.
camera anymore.
I
I
told
won't
Phil
put them on camera.
I would watch Chucky for his birthday. We never
So
watched
creepy.
it. But we went to go
We were
see Back to
busy.
the Future, the musical, and
We
we're
did.
lukewarm about it.
I love Back to the Future.
But not the musical.
All right. I do actually want to know more about Back to the Musical, The Future, and your lukewarm response. We'll do that for Patreon later because I'm curious. But let's wrap up. Kat, where can everybody find you online?
At Comic Uno is the best place to find me. I'll be watching Chucky and yeah.
Yeah.
Phil, what about you?
At Phil Falco writes. That's PH, then F, then WR. On all the platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, because now we have to do that.
That's right.
So fun.
So fun. Morgan, what about you?
You can find me at Mojotastic on Instagram and Twitter, and I guess also Threads. I don't know.
I've given up on Threads.
Whatever Threads
Yeah.
is, whatever
I don't feel
that
like
is
Doing too
happening.
much of that.
But you can also find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where we are covering the My Adventures with Superman animated show that's on I keep wanting to say HBO Max. It's just Max now.
Just
So-
Max. And they lost subscribers because they changed it.
I saw
Of
that
course they did.
yesterday. They lost like
The-
over 1 million subscribers just when they rebranded.
What?
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's impressive.
Because they
Great
were
job,
like,
guys.
what's this? I don't know what this is. Also, Phil, there was just someone who backed named Gigi, which is also, I believe, the name of that Chucky doll. Or the
Well,
I won't.
that's
I won't put Glenn on
Nope.
camera
Nope.
again. But they changed their name
Nope.
to Gigi eventually. So
so someone just
Gigi
named
backed.
Gigi.
thank
Yeah,
you.
Gigi backed.
That's a little too coincidental for me.
Amy's like horrified.
This is haunt. It's really just Abby backing it, but changing
so.
her name.
Mm.
I like the dedication, Abby.
So, reminder, you guys can find our podcast at The Legendary Ladies on Instagram and TikTok. On Twitter, Legends_podcast. If you used to follow Legends_podcast when we did the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, please do us a favor, find it again and re-follow. That old account had a name change, so it's not the same. So if you still want to get updates, if you want to send us feedback and all that stuff, you got to re-follow us, Legends_podcast on Twitter. We have the threads. We don't use the threads.
Do we?
But
We
it's
have
there.
the threads, but I keep
We have the
forgetting
threads.
we have the threads.
We don't
honestly.
sew the threads.
Abby's like, you got me. I made a second Kickstarter
Do they have a
account in the
name
last
for
10
when you
minutes.
tweet on threads? Because they should say, "Oh, I'm sewing."
Oh, that would be fun.
You can also find us on Patreon, patreon.com/thelegendaryladies. If you are a patron at the $10 or more level, you get to join us live on these podcasts, and we often bank episodes. So sometimes you get to see an episode way ahead
Like
of
a
time.
month in advance.
Yeah.
Like a month in advance. You also get to see some really cool behind the scenes unscripted content. Sometimes it's pictures. The one that's posting actually the day that this episode is coming out is the conversation Morgan and I had after we recorded the
Our
Dragon
last
Prince episode.
Yeah.
And it was me finding the lost cake picture. We analyzed that. We also did show and tell, and we learned a couple of things about the poster behind Morgan. Fun fact, not a poster.
It's
It is
not.
a photo.
Done. Oh.
You'll have
Twist.
to watch that.
I have
and
to
you'll also be able
subscribe
see
to our
my-
Patreon to find out.
Yeah, Kat hasn't seen it.
Amy and I were
Uh,
like, should we do show and tells more often?
We literally, and we're gonna do it more. That was really
we're
fun.
kindergartners, so
My favorite
yeah.
picture is the bread woman over there.
Bread
Oh.
woman.
I love the bread woman. There's a Laura bread woman. When we
Julie-
first started becoming friends,
Julius
Julie's-
and Kat wrote a story about the bread woman.
I feel like this is one of your next comic
You should do a
books,
story
but
time
I hope
podcast
so.
about it.
There you
about
go.
bread woman.
That's the only world building that Kat wanted to do.
It's just about why
Backstory
she
of
put in
Bread
that.
Woman.
She has this dome that might be an oven but might not be, and it's just so interesting. And it's definitely bread.
So I think that's going to wrap this episode up. Thank you. If you are listening on iTunes or Stitcher, subscribe and follow us. Leave a 5-star review. Take a listen to some of our other episodes. If you've joined on this podcast because you wanted to learn more about Beast and Snow and you're like, wow, queer representation is really my thing. It's ours too. We've had a lot of conversations about queer representation in media. It's really easy to search our episodes on our new website, thelegendaryladies.podcast.com. Is it the Legendary Ladies podcast or just Legendary Ladies podcast?
Let's find out.
Double
It's
check
so
that.
easy that
It's so easy that we
.com.
forget.
It's
It is the Legendaries
I was
Ladies because I
correct.
just put in Legendary Ladies and I got nothing. Yes,
The Legendary Ladies podcast.
just like the Beast and Snow.
Exactly.
The
The
Legendary-
Legendary Ladies.
Don't search just
You're going to
ladies.
shorten the Legendary Ladies podcast to just
yes.
for ladies.
Please don't go to ladies.com. I don't know what you're
That's
gonna
gonna be
find.
a different website, and you know that's
I'm gonna
the
search
experience you're gonna
it.
have there.
Let's find out what ladies.com
Oh,
is.
are you searching
I'm
it?
going to do it.
I
Too.
am absolutely
Ever-
searching.
okay.
It is
Your computer
where to
shuts
find
down.
single women.
Yeah,
You know what?
yeah.
That's
That's
it.
good.
Meet the
That's
girl
a
of
good-
your
Dating site. It
dreams.
was
He's
not
waiting.
quite as 18
She's
plus
waiting.
as I was planning.
You know what? I'm glad someone snagged that. I'm
This website
glad.
looks like it's from like
It's
2000.
ancient. It's
That's
ancient.
so funny.
Because it probably
Ladies.
is. I hope someone met their lady on there.
Me too.
They're so desperate and they're like,
Yes.
what do I search?
Email
Ladies.com.
us.
Could you imagine being like, I really want a lady? Ladies.com.
I think you should do this once
Word.
per podcast. Pick a random word and just search the URL.
Oh,
See what you
God.
get.
I love the idea of this.
We can't search. I know legendary.com would be like
Men.com.
super cool. I
I'm
just
looking
don't know
up
what the.com comes to.
Men.com.
Men.com looks gay to
The.com
me.
has not been claimed.
Wow.
Oh. Nope,
Listeners.
it has been claimed. It published pages. It's literally about SEO. That's
Good
hilarious.
for it.
If you go to men.com, you will get gay porn.
Yeah, that
Just
makes
telling
sense.
you.
That correct.
This is
listen,
really interesting.
Men.com was always going to be some form of porn. We knew this. We all knew this.
But ladies.com, you're finding your wife?
But
Interesting.
ladies,
Because you're not looking for ladies, Kat. You can try women.com.
No, I haven't tried that one yet.
I'll try it.
After we try
So-
womans.com,
Oh
we'll
no,
end.
this is important.
Oh,
either.
this is pretty good actually. This is like that's a very empowering website.
Yeah.
I really like women.com. I'm not gonna
It
lie.
actually is.
Fashion
Oh, look at
articles.
that.
There's good articles. That's good.
I've learned
Incidentally,
so
if you search
much.
podcast.com, it redirects to Audible podcasts. So nice job,
good for
Audible,
that.
on snagging that
Audible.
redirect. right, so that's gonna
Nicemen.com, nicewoman.com.
This has just become a searching the internet podcast now. I hope you enjoy it.
And this is the kind of content you get if you subscribe to our Patreon. So we hope you all had a wonderful episode or enjoyed it. I think we were saying before this that if you're interested in some of our previous episodes, we had some really cool stuff about queer representation in media. Go on our website, thelegendaryladiespodcast.com, all 4 words.com, and look at some of the episodes. If you search the word queer, you'll get some really cool stuff. We chat about Ava Lance a lot. We are very passionate about talking about these kind of conversations, and we hope you are too. If you're interested in, Willie, how do I do a Kickstarter? We did a whole episode on it. Literally, there is a free Kickstarter, kicking your Kickstarter going, consulting on cats watch
You
conversation
should still hire
available.
me.
Yes,
Live
exactly.
action
Hire her,
advice.
for sure.
Live action advice.
You get a phone call.
Kickstarting your Kickstarter. God, that's so good. How did it take us this long to come up with that, Morgan?
I don't know.
That's our thing. We are the tagline people.
It just came to me.
That paper is raining.
There you go, Kat. You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right, Kat and Phil. Phil, you're our guest, which means you get to sign us off. Do you remember what the sign off is?
No.
I'm sure he does.
Why don't you? Wait, Phil. First, I find out you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel. Now you don't listen to our podcast.
I listen. I just let's sign off before the sign off because I know all your social media.
Well, that's fair though. All right, so Phil, you get to any way you want. Thanks for listening and stay legendary. That's what you
Okay.
get to say, but you can say it in any format you
Any
want.
way
You
I
can sing
want.
it. You can say it in a
Anyway?
different language. Oh,
Glenn's out.
Glenn's out, everybody.
the puppet.
I brought out the doll. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Stay legendary.